people, you have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. Pause here. Here's Moses. He's taken on this great... Oh, let me turn this on. I apologize for... I always seem to leave something... And so here he is taking on this great task of going up to make atonement for the people they've done. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Alas, this people has sinned a great sin. They have made for themselves gods of gold. But now if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book that you have written." And we're going to kind of look at that in just a second. And then I think this next slide appropriately, when you look at it, Moses stopped for a moment. How could he finish? What deal could he make? What offering could he give to persuade God to forgive Israel? What price could he pay? It has been well said that only Jesus could complete the sentence. If thou wilt forgive them, I will pay their penalty with the sacrifice of my blood. And Jesus was the perfect sacrifice, lived without sin, completely serving his Father, doing those things that are pleasing to him, and going to the cross for us. Yeah, he's the one that could the one that could truly make that statement. But the Lord said to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book." And let me pause there. And this idea, and again, I don't want to get too far afield, but I think it's quite interesting talking about blotting, blot out my name as well. And Moses is kind of standing in the thing there. But this idea of blotting the name out. And I think of Malachi. I'll read this one right here. Then those who, and I'm going back to Malachi 3:16, then those who feared the Lord spoke to one another, and the Lord listened and heard them. So a book of remembrance was written before him for those who fear the Lord and who meditate upon his name. And then I'm jumped to Luke 10, and this is where the 70 had been sent out, and they come back rejoicing the abilities that they'd been given, the power they had, if you will. And notice what Jesus said to them. "Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven." Philippians 4:3, "And I urge you also, true companion, help those women who labored with me in the gospel, with Clement, and also with the rest of the fellow workers whose names are in the book of life." And there's several other passages I could read. And so, the idea is, you read this and we might just kind of glance over that, but this is pretty significant. Hopefully, we want our names to be written there. I don't think this is a frivolous thing. And again, we don't have time to really develop that. But I thought instead of just letting that pass by, and there's several other passages I could have read, but I think it's pretty significant, and I think it's very significant what Moses is doing here. Blot out my name. It's like, God, you were going to get rid of this people. If you're going to destroy them, it's like he's saying, put me in there too. As it were. He's kind of putting himself in there, which I think it shows the kind of attitude he had and the care he had for the people. Then I'll pick back up in verse 34. But now go, lead the people to the place about which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. Then the Lord sent a plague on the people because they made a calf, the one that Aaron made. And so we don't know, and we're going to look at this real quick. We don't know. There's no specific description is given of this plague, the one that God just said that, or its results. Some therefore think the reference may be to the 3,000 who were killed by the Levites. You remember how they went through, and those people that were stubborn and obstinate, there were people, I think, that realized, hey, we've really messed up, and they had the right kind of spirit. But there were those, I guess you could say they were bold in their stubbornness or whatever. But they may have, this may have been close relatives to some of the people, some of these Levites who went through and actually killed, The reference may be the 3,000 who were killed by the Levites. Others say that the wording of 32, 34 to 35 indicates God is saying he will punish them for the sins on this occasion, the day when I punish. In that case, the day of visitation probably refers to the day when God told Israel they would wander in the wilderness until the generation was dead, and it's got some references there, Numbers 14:20 and Numbers 14. The wandering in the wilderness was not only because of Israel's lack of faith at Kadesh Barnea, but also because they had tempted God these 10 times and because of their whoredoms. And again, so, we don't know, but punishment's coming. And God, let it be known, the guilty will not go free. He will show mercy. But again, he's not just going to look the other way, and so there's punishments. It could be the 3,000, and then certainly we know what's going to happen to that generation that refused to go into the promised land. The Lord said to Moses, "Depart, go up from here, you and the people whom you have brought up from the land of Egypt to the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your offspring I will give it. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go up among you, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people." They're very stubborn people. And I love that term, stiff-necked. When the people heard this disastrous word, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. For the Lord had said to Moses, "Say to the people of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people, for if for a single moment I should go up among you, I will consume you. So now take off your ornaments, that I may know what to do with you." Therefore the people of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Horeb onward. What ornaments do you think they're talking about? They came out of Egypt. Do you think they came out with ornaments? I think they did. I think they had all kinds of precious things, gold, silver, various things. And I have no doubt they probably, got caught up in that, if you will. And so I would imagine that's the ornaments that and so there's no reason for them to have any kind of look at me, as it were. It's a time of mourning and sorrow, and for what they've done. But notice God said he would not go up with them. The news was very discouraging to Moses and the people. When this great adventure had begun, God was present, and he was in charge. He gathered his people into his arms, as it were, to deliver them and to make them what he wanted them to be. Moses was called from his quiet life as a shepherd to undertake an enormous task. And let's pause there for a minute. You remember back, Moses, here he is like a shepherd, quiet life, things are going on. And then you remember how God appeared to him in the burning bush, or the angel, and then God spoke to him out of the burning bush. Again, I'll pick back up, an enormous task, a task which he could do only with God's help. Now God has withdrawn himself. Now he is not near the people. They are Moses' people, not God's. God will send an angel, but he will not be among the people. The wonder and glory of this whole great saga was gone, and it had become rather ordinary without God's personal involvement. What else could it be? The covenant is broken. They are no longer God's special people. And I think Moses gets a sense of that. If God's not with us, it's not the same. Do you see how discouraging this could be to hear God say that I can't be among you? I would hope that one of our greatest fears is that we're separated from God. We live in a world, and they do whatever they want to, and they don't really think about things like that. But I would hope one of our greatest fears is that we could somehow be separated from God. Would that not be a horrible thought? Now he's going to take care of the situation, but I would like to think if we were in that group, that would bother me. That would bother all of us. God, you're not going to go with us. It bothered Moses. And Moses, knew, Now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise up, and each would stand at his tent door and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak to Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his tent door. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses turned again into the camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would not depart from the tent. So we see how how Moses is not continually going up on the mountain. They've made accommodations for Moses, for God to speak, as it were. It says face to face, and God even says that God doesn't. This is not how God usually communicates with most people. It's very rare. And so Moses is in a really special category, if you will, that God speaks to him face to face. But the people are seeing this. And so when the cloud's there, they know God is there. And again, all these things that they saw, and it says that they would worship. I don't know, rise up and worship. I don't know what that involved. I don't know if that was a genuine kind of connection there that it should have been, or if they just kind of went through the motions, as it were. And the thing is, people can do that. We can say the right things, make the right gestures, if you will. Get up and show concern. But it makes you wonder how connected they really were. We know that they should have been very connected. And when you saw this happening, that Moses is meeting, that should be something of great significance. What does God want? Was going to tell Moses, who in turn will probably let them know as well. What's going on. So just saying. And it's interesting. We see Joshua here. And it's like he's kind of making sure he's staying with the tent, so he's not just coming back in and of course we know his history, but this is where he started out and doing things like that, I guess in service to God, may not all start out. You can't do this and can't do that, but you look where you can be of service, where you can help. And here's Joshua, and he's staying with the tent for whatever reason, making sure things are, I guess, like they should be. But we see him in service, as it were. He's not a spokesman. He's not doing anything right now, but he's definitely Moses' assistant. And so this is one of the ways that he's helping. Moses said to the Lord, "See, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not yet let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor in my sight. Now, therefore, if I have found favor in your sight, please show me now your ways, that I may know you in order to find favor in your sight. Consider, too, that this nation is your people." Let me pause there. Moses is working that back in. It's like, hey, these are your people, it's what's interesting. It seems like God kind of distanced himself a little bit. If you remember back, God points out, Moses, you brought these people up. And then Moses makes reference and says, God, you brought these people. And we know, Moses was the instrument by which God used, but it was God that did that. And he wants to know, this nation is your people. And he said, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Let me pause here. Do you find that interesting, that Moses does find that kind of favor with God, that he's willing, he's not going to go with them. And good reason why. God could say, hey, in a moment I could just, because of how stiff-necked these people are. Do y'all find that interesting that God, you see the mercy of God? Does that give y'all something to think about with God, that there's so many instances where we see His mercy. Now, His judgment, when there's judgment's called for, He's not going to look the other way. But I find that how after Moses talking to him, not like he has to convince him. I think God knew already how Moses was going to react. But the good thing is Moses did react like he should have. Any thoughts on that or anything? But he goes back and he says, but my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. And he said to him, if your presence will not go with me, do not bring us up from here. For how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not in your going with us, so that we are distinct, I and your people, from every other people on the face of the earth? And the Lord said to Moses, this very thing that you have spoken I will do, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name. So Moses is everything that he should be. I mean, he has stepped up to this situation, did not back away, didn't make excuses, didn't he stepped up. And the thing was, because of what he did, God is telling him, you have found favor, and it just lets us know, when we do what we should, and we should have that kind of concern for one another, but we put God first, obviously, and we want to follow those examples like Moses, you'd like to think God looking at you I know their heart. They have an honest heart, and they're gonna do the right thing. Moses said, please show me your glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord, and I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But he said, you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face you shall not be seen. And then there's some interesting comments on this. This is one of the most mysterious scenes described in the Bible. He had for his comfort and encouragement a splendid and full display of the divine majesty, not in its unveiled effulgence, but as far as the weakness of humanity would admit. The face, the hand, back parts are to be understood figuratively. When Moses said, show me thy glory, he did not mean show me a bright light. He wanted to see the divine character or nature of God. How the divine goodness could be shown to the physical eye by a mere display is incomprehensible. For this reason, it is likely that when the glory of Jehovah passed by Moses, his goodness was somehow displayed to the mental and spiritual eye of Moses, while in some way there was a physical manifestation of God's presence as well. And 2 points clear. With Moses, the more he knew of God, the more he wanted to know. Secondly, there is a limit to how much mortal man can experience God. Compare viewing the sun. You might want to look at the sun, and you can't do it very long, or you shouldn't do it very long. And so one of the things I wanted to read this about Moses again, and this points to the character of Moses. Even in the midst of his glorious experience, and let me pause there, doing this, and God is really accommodating this request. And so, Moses could be puffed up, or he could even in the midst of his glorious experience, Moses does not forget his task, which is to intercede for his people. In the face of Israel's iniquity and unworthiness, think of the enormity of asking Jehovah, the God of heaven and earth, to take them for his inheritance. In his intercession, Moses voices the only means by which man can sustain a relationship with God. That is, I know the people are obstinate, but please pardon and forgive their iniquities and sins. Since man sins, it is only through God's forgiveness that man has a hope of approaching God. How blessed Israel was and how blessed we are that God is merciful and that he forgives iniquity. This was a most important lesson that Israel and all mankind had to learn. Can you imagine if you mess up, that's it? If you sin, you had your chance. Do we realize, and around the Lord's table, we look back on, how Jesus gave his life and the forgiveness that we have, the blood that was shed. But, imagine, if we didn't have that and, one and done, as it were. No, the mercy of God. Hopefully we give thanks to God for that, for his mercy, for all that he's done, the salvation that he has made available. And the good thing is we get to see it here as we go through this. We get to see how God worked with those people. And we see a man like Moses and realize, wow, if Moses hadn't been there, it could have been really bad. When we look to and going through Exodus 25 to 31, well, I'll read this right here. Exodus 34, 4 through 28 covers the 40 years that Moses was on the mountain the second time. Which part the law was given to Moses the first time that he was on the mount, and which part was given the second time is unclear. The natural assumption is that in chapters 25 through 30, and remember, we were trying to keep that continuity going with a covenant offered, a covenant ratified, a covenant broken, and a covenant renewed, if you will. We're trying to keep that continuity going. And we didn't look at all the nuts and bolts of that, but then we're going to kind of go back and do that. The natural assumption is that chapters 25 through 30 were given to him the first time. Chapters 35 through 40 contain a record of the building of the tabernacle and its furniture, the making of the garments for the priests, and the setting up of the completed tabernacle. Nearly all of Leviticus and parts of Numbers also contain laws and regulations which were almost certainly given to Moses during these two sessions in the mount. So he goes up the second time, and again, we don't know exactly how what things were revealed to him, but we trust God to know that he knew exactly what he needed to know. And the Lord said unto Moses, hew the 2 tablets of stone like unto the first, and I'll write upon these tablets the words that were in the first tablets, which thou breakest. And be ready in the morning and come up. Be ready in the morning and come up in the morning unto Mount Sinai, and present thyself there to me in the top of the mount. And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount, neither let the flocks nor herds feed before the mount. And he hewed two tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning, and he went up unto the Mount Sinai, as the Lord had commanded him. And he took in his hand the 2 tables of stone, or tablets, of stone. And the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed by before him and proclaimed, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty. That's what I was referring to there. He can, and I'll pause there, he'll show mercy, but you're not going to get something by God. And he sees the heart. He knows. And so, but forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children until the 3rd and 4th generation. And so the thing is, one thing about God, we look at our world around us, and you see the court system, and you see how justice is administered. It's almost like, you got a lawyer on one side, and all he's trying to do is get somebody off. It doesn't matter if the guy's guilty or not. You got the other guy on the other side, and he's trying to figure out a way to, we're going to get him charged with this. And in the whole mix, it almost seems like, does the truth really matter? I mean, you got people just, they say justice, but is it really about truth and justice? But with God, guaranteed, it's about truth and justice. And his justice is absolute, but you can guarantee it's totally fair. He doesn't, like man doesn't do things like that. And as it were, because they cut corners and this is how it's done. No, it's about truth and justice, and God's way is perfect. And Moses made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. And he said, if I have found grace in thy sight, O Lord, let my Lord, I pray thee, go among us, for it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for thine inheritance. And I like what's said here. For it is a stiff-necked people, and therefore have need of such an one to be with them, to rule and govern them, to restrain and keep them within due bounds. This is the reason given by the Lord why he would not go among them. Wherefore Moses prays that he would go, notwithstanding this, humbly prays that God would nevertheless vouchsafe his presence, guarantee his presence there. And so, Moses is, I guess, coming from that direction. And that's one thing, like with God's word, he gives us direction. He gives us the bounds. He gives us the things that we need to focus on, and the things we need to stay away from. Any thoughts or anything? I hope I'm not overlooking anybody. Okay. And he said, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among which thou shalt see the works of the Lord. For it is a terrible thing, or the New King James says an awesome thing. And I guess I like that, that idea a little bit. It says it's a terrible thing or an awesome thing that I will do with thee. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I will drive out before thee the Amorite and the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, cut down their groves, for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous. For the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. And let me ask you all this. The ones he's talking about, is it time for judgment to come upon them now? Remember, the children of Israel have been in Egypt for over 400 years. And you remember back when he was talking to Abraham, talks about their judgment it's not yet full. Now, does it seem like the time's getting near? Judgment's coming, and that's one thing you can count on from God. We may not see things on his timeline. We think, well, what about this? What about that? God is in control, and when it's time, then that's the right time. God's time is the right time. And unfortunately, these groups here, I guess over time have just gotten more wicked and idolatry and all that kind of stuff. And he's trying to warn them, don't have anything to do with him. You need to destroy their altars. All that they deal with don't have anything to do with. And there's no that's not foggy, is it? It's not not like muddy water, is it? I mean, is it pretty plain and pretty clear that he's, when they go into the land, here's how you deal with these people. There's no mystery there. There's no gray area. And the Lord said to Moses, write these words, for in accordance with these words I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. So here we have the covenant renewed. So he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water, and he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. Do you think that's a miraculous thing there? He neither ate bread nor drank water? I think it had to be. Absolutely had to be. God sustained him, and he was about the business that God wanted him to be about. So, and he was there. This was the second time. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, as he came down from the mountain, Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone, because he had been talking with God. Aaron and all the people of Israel saw Moses, and behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses talked with them. And so afterward, all the people of Israel came near, and he commanded them all that the Lord had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. Whenever Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would remove the veil until he came out. And when he came out, he told the people of Israel what he was commanded. The people of Israel would see the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face was shining. And Moses would put the veil over his face until he went in to speak with him. This is mentioned there's some places talking about in the New Testament, and I think it shows the difference between the old covenant and the new covenant, the covenant that we're under. Therefore, cherishing a hope like this, we speak without reserve, and we do not imitate Moses, who used to throw a veil over his face to hide from the gaze of the children of Israel the passing away of what was but transitory. Nay, their minds were made dull for this very day. During the reading of the book of the ancient covenant, the same veil remains unlifted, because it is only in Christ that it is to be abolished. Yes, to this day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies upon the hearts, but whenever the heart of the nation shall have returned to the Lord, the veil will be withdrawn. And when you read in 2 Corinthians, and I kind of wanted to read a little bit more of 2 Corinthians there than what we see. They start in verse 12, and this is talking about the glory of the new covenant. I'm going to go back and read this, but I'm going to pick up in verse 7, and I think I'll go ahead and read through verse 18. But if the ministry of death written and engraved on stones was glorious, let me pause there, talking about what they had, the law of Moses, as it were, was glorious, so that the children of Israel could not look steadfastly at the face of Moses because of the glory of his countenance, which glory was passing away. How will the ministry of the Spirit not be more glorious? For if the ministry of condemnation had glory, the ministry of righteousness exceeds much more in glory. For even what was made glorious had no glory in this respect, because of the glory that excels. For what is passing away was glorious, but what remains is much more glorious. Therefore, since we have such hope, we use great boldness of speech, unlike Moses, who put a veil over his face so that the children of Israel could not look steadfastly at the end of what was passing away. But their minds were blinded, for until this day the same veil remains unlifted in the reading of the Old Testament, because the veil is taken away in Christ. But even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil lies on their heart. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. And I think I might turn over to Hebrews 8 and just read just a little bit there if y'all will indulge me on that. Talking about the new covenant. For if the first covenant, and this is Hebrews chapter 8, picking up in verse 7. For if the first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. But finding fault with them, he says, Behold, the days are coming, says the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord. I will put my laws in their mind and write them on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. None of them shall teach his neighbor, and none his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their lawless deeds I will remember no more. In that, he says, a new covenant, he has made the first obsolete. Now, what is becoming obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away. The only reason I wanted to read that, because I want us to get a sense, when we go through this, I want us to appreciate even more, if it's possible, exactly what we're a part of. You look at how blessed they were, and you see the mercy of God, how he forgave them, and the covenant's renewed, and he's going to go before them. He's given them this land flowing with milk and honey, and they all these blessings cannot compare to what we have today. I'm just saying, and I read that just to hopefully we get that sense, and let's not miss that for sure. And now we move on to, and let's see. To the tabernacle. And like we said in Exodus 25 through 31, and what all he got there. And I want to say, I think in the other chapters that mentions this, 35 through, I think it was like 40 or 41, and it talks about the people and who's going to be doing the various things. But I wanted to go over the chronology of, before we jump into that. And hold on one second. Sorry, I had dropped something. The chronology, we go back and look at this. The first month, the 15th, the first year, the first month, the 15th day, the Israelites left Egypt. And that's back in Exodus chapter 12. On the second day of the 15th day of the second month, they arrived in the wilderness of Sin. In the third month, and we don't know exactly when, but sometime in the third month, they arrived at Mount Sinai. A few days have passed. God made his offer of a covenant, and the people prepared to hear God speak. He came down upon the mountain and spoke the 10 Commandments orally. The people were afraid and asked that God speak to Moses and let him tell them all the requirements from God. God gave Moses the overview of the law that formed the original covenant. Then the covenant was ratified. Moses went into the mountain for 40 days. At the end of the 40 days, the people built a golden calf, breaking their covenant. Moses intercedes and the covenant is renewed. Moses returns to the mount for another 40 days and nights. And then the next 6 months, the people build the tabernacle and all its furnishings. They prepare the garments for the priest. The first day of the first month in the second year, so I'll say the second year, first day, or say second year, first month, first day, that's when they're actually going to set up the tabernacle. And then the next 7 days, Aaron and his sons are going to be consecrated as priests. And so I just want to kind of give us a sense of what's going on. And then on the 8th day of the first month, the second year, Aaron and his sons began their work as priests. And then, I won't go through the others because we haven't gotten to the other stuff yet. But that's just to give us a sense while they're here at Sinai. They're going to be here about a year, and there's a lot of things that are going to be going on. The tabernacle is going to be built, and so it's a big deal. And I wanted to read this about the tabernacle also, since we're looking at here. While Moses was on the mount, God gave him detailed instructions about how to build a dwelling place for him that would serve as a constant reminder to the people that God was indeed in their midst. So, God says he's going to go with them. Here is, you could look and say the dwelling place, if you will, that God was indeed in their midst. It was to be a beautiful, very costly, movable structure. The Hebrew word for tabernacle means a tent, but it was much more than a typical tent. Most of it was built of wood and covered with costly metal. Even the coverings and curtains were specially designed and woven to fit the prescribed pattern. All metal inside the tabernacle itself was either gold or silver, except for the sockets for the entrance post. These sockets were of bronze. The metal outside was either silver or bronze. And so then he goes and he talks about, and I'll ask this question, where did they get all this stuff? Gold, silver? Where'd that come from? They found it somewhere? Huh? In Egypt, exactly. It goes back to that. And you see, what God told them, he told them to ask for these things. The Egyptians are ready for you to go. And so now we see, again, the purpose of God, all these things fit together. Them getting those things, it's not so that the people can be, they're going to be rich and they can wear this stuff and just, No, there's a purpose in all this. And that's the beauty of when you study things, you see how all it starts unfolding. You're like, yes, it has a purpose. We'll have to call it there. I appreciate, and we're going to pick up with the tabernacle, and so that's where we'll kind of get into that next time.